Alright everybody, so let's roll through this real quick. This past week's election, the November 2nd elections that happened in some states across the country, everybody is fixated on the state of Virginia, and there's a good reason for that. One, it's been considered a Democratic stronghold for a quite significant period of time. Joe Biden won this state by more than 10% in 2020. And then here we go 10 months later, and the Republicans seize control of the House of Delegates in Virginia, and they win the governorship in Virginia. The Washington, D.C. area is considered a Democratic stronghold. That's been like that since the 1980s, since the Reagan Revolution. But for some reason here we see Republicans, including Governor-elect Youngkin's, in Virginia, victory on Tuesday night over Terry McAuliffe, who was a former governor running for re-election in a state he had already governed, and the constituents still said, no, thank you. This is what happens when a president of the same party has an approval rating of 42.9%. 42.9%, and a disapproval rating overall of 55%. And it's simple. Joe Biden's not getting anything done that he said he was going to get done when he was running for president against Bernie Sanders, and then when he ran in the general election against Donald Trump. To put it fairly, when Donald Trump was president during the COVID pandemic, folks got $2,600 in relief. While Joe Biden was president, there was that $1,400 check. You remember that? All the way back at the beginning? And now there's the infrastructure bill. The infrastructure bill, which the progressives touted as a big achievement by Joe Biden, and they were going to be proud to get across the finish line for him, and they've conceded every fucking step. Every step. For Social Security disability benefit increases, SSDI increases, vision and dental benefits for those on Social Security disability, 2-year free universal community college for folks. I think one of the only things left in there is universal child care. But there's rumblings about that being means tested. When you hear a politician say, hey, let's means test something, that means let's see if people really need this service. Let's lower the ceiling as low as we can possibly go, closest to the poverty level, and see how many people really need universal basic child care to go to work and to be successful and to get them and their families out of fucking poverty. This infrastructure bill, once touted as a $10 trillion landmark piece of legislation, has gone from 10 trillion to 5 trillion to 3.5 trillion. Now we're at $1.75 trillion. And I know some of you are going to say, hey, that's still a shitload of money. And yeah, in a way it is. But when you have an infrastructure in the United States that's 40, 50 years past due and being fixed, our bridges are fucking crumbling, our roads are absolutely disastrous, destroying cars. Let's face it, if you took a trip across the country, would you feel safe going over some wooden rickety bridges? Would you feel safe going over some of the freeways? Bridges made out of concrete that haven't been touched up since the 1960s? Come on. This is why Joe Biden's approval numbers is at 42.9%. This is what happens when special interest rules politics in general. This is what happens when you have special interest control the conversation in Washington and not the American people. This is what happens. And now we got a president who's at record low approval ratings for his first term in office, first year in office, first 10 months in office. Donald Trump was doing much better at this point in his tenure during his 4-year term as president. In comparison, Joe Biden looks like the loser. How popular is Joe Biden? Not popular. Alright, so let's take a look here. Alright, all the way back when he was first elected, 53% approval rating. Alright? 53% approval rating. And then we got all the way over here to where we are current day. Alright, when was this poll taken here? November 5th. So this is as of today. He's sitting at 42.9. We can see the trend going down, 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 down. Well, when did the trend really start? People wonder, when did this downtrend truly start? I can tell you when it started. July 27th rather, is when this trend started and when Joe Biden started falling off a cliff. Now, what happened on July 27th? So if we go to this week, 10 things you need to know, July 27, 2021, Biden announces the end of U.S. combat mission Iraq. Medical groups call for vaccinating all healthcare workers and more. Alright? So Biden announces formal end of U.S. combat mission Iraq, finally getting the fuck out of there. Alright? Number 3, Biden administration recognizes long-time COVID as a disability. Number 4, White House maintains travel restrictions as Delta variant spreads. Number 5, Pfizer Moderna to test vaccine effects on more children. Oy vey. Number 6, Senators, White House continue infrastructure talks as deadline passes. This shit was supposed to be done this summer. That's why Joe Biden's sitting with a low approval rating. That's why Joe Biden looks like a cuck. And people are going to keep treating him like he's a cuck. Alright, that's why things started going downhill back in July. And then you had the whole Afghan withdrawal, and then we had people falling off of planes, and that looked absolutely horrid. So, just to put it out there, politically I'm independent, but in my ideology I'm very progressive. Alright? I believe that everybody should have means to live. Alright? It's not a dog-eat-dog world. If someone is an actual fucking human being, they deserve housing, they deserve food, alright? They shouldn't have to go scratch and claw for 40 plus hours a week just to make ends meet, to afford an overpriced apartment in an overpriced market where the food is overpriced. People didn't ask for this. The 99% of us living outside of that billionaire bubble did not ask for any of this. But the Democratic Party has gone too far left. The left has taken control of the Democratic Party. Jesus Christ. No! It's because you guys are corporate. You're corporate. Corporate Democrats do not represent the 99%. Both parties are corrupt. Both parties are owned by lobbyists and special interests. And both parties no longer have the American people as a priority, but special interests. It's just insane. Well, Virginia is now totally Republican because Democrats are far too left. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. The mainstream media knows it's bullshit. The reason why Virginia, a Democratic stronghold, okay, that went to Joe Biden by 10 plus points during the general election this past year, the reason why the Democratic stronghold of Virginia went Republican is because the Democrats did not have a strategy. Then Youngkin said, hey McAuliffe, let's have a debate about critical race theory. And McAuliffe yet said, yeah brother, let's do that. Democratic Party is there for the working poor, the everyday guy, the everyday woman, the everyday person. That's what we've all been raised to think. Bullshit. McAuliffe walked right into their trap. McAuliffe should have stuck on the issues, not the narrative that the Republicans and the conservatives and the far right were making this race about. The issues, not a made-up narrative. And we can sit here all day and debate, is critical race theory something that should be taught in schools? Should parents have a say in their children's education? Of course, parents should have a say in their children's education. Anybody that says otherwise is an idiot. But what we have here from November 2nd of Terry McAuliffe, a former governor of the state of Virginia, running for re-election, getting trounced by a Republican over a narrative that has been bloated by the right wing in this country. It spells doom for 2024. There are record Democrats retiring as we speak in Washington. They're not running for re-election. There's a lot of seats being gerrymandered around the country, and there's a lot of seats going vacant, and they can go either way in 2024, and things are looking really, really good for Speaker-to-be Kevin McCarthy right about now. And when Joe Biden wonders, where did things go wrong, man? Well, look at July 27th, 2021, as a day where your administration died. And away we go with the approval numbers. When presidents have bad approval ratings, their party tends to do poorly in down ballot races. In 538's average of polls, Biden's approval is down to 42.9%, with his disapproval rating up to 50.7%. It's obvious not good to be nearly 8 points underwater, but with historical context, Biden's situation looks even worse. For one, Biden's disapproval rating is at one point in his term is higher than all but one president since the advent of modern polling. Only Donald Trump's was higher by about 6 percentage points per 538's historical numbers. Biden's approval rating is already lower than Barack Obama and Bill Clinton's were just before their disastrous 2010 and 1994 midterms. Obama's approval was at 45% and Clinton's was at 47.2%. Democrats lost 63 House of Representative seats in 2010 and 54 seats in 1994. So let's put this into context. Trump was at 42% approval in 2018. Biden was sworn into office 10 months ago, and things don't look like they're going to get any better. There's an old saying, what did the hurricane say to the palm tree? Hold on to your nuts, this isn't going to be any ordinary blowjob. And that's exactly what we're heading toward here. A disaster in 2024. It looks like at this point in time the Democrats may just indeed get wiped out. But when you turn your back on the working poor and you say you're going to pass a $10 trillion spending bill, that includes more for the disabled, more dental, more vision care. And also, folks who also receive that money, SSDI, are those 65 and older. If we're not taking care of our elderly and we're not taking care of our disabled, what kind of a country are we? Judge a country not on its wealth, but how it treats the weakest and most vulnerable of its society. We are a dumpster fire on a collision course with disaster. Things did not have to be this fucked up. It's just, if Joe Biden would have just stuck to 5 trillion, okay, we don't need to talk about 10 trillion. But if he would have said, okay, I'm going to cut the spending bill in half, 5 trillion, but that's where I'm stopping, I ain't going any lower. And if you make me go any lower than that, I'm going to do stuff by executive action. Pardoning Julian Assange, pardoning Edward Snowden, pardoning Chelsea Manning. pardoning Attorney Dosinger. Getting all that out of the way. Then absolving and getting rid of, just forgiving all the student debt. And then on top of that, through executive action, mandate universal UBI checks of $1,000 per month per American. Things that can be done through executive order. But Joe Biden's not even playing rough with the Republicans anymore. He's not even pretending. There would be some redeeming quality here if he at least had a good vice president. A vice president that people liked. But Kamala Harris, she's doing worse than Joe Biden in realms of approval. So at the end of the day, people say, well, the Virginia race, it's going to happen because when presidents do poorly, their parties don't do that well either. The fact that Virginia is now in Republican control was totally avoidable. But when you send corporate Democrats like Barack Obama and Stacey Abrams to do some stumping for Terry McAuliffe, it looks like the march of the corporate Democrats. Bernie Sanders sure as hell wasn't going to get in there and stump for Terry McAuliffe, I'll tell you that much. So what now? What next? Looks like we're heading for a $1.75 trillion spending bill that absolutely nobody wants. And it's being delayed. Honestly, at this point, kill the bill. Just kill it. And if Joe Biden had any brains between his ears, and if his advisors had any brains between their ears, start issuing some executive orders and start showing some balls. Start showing some political gusto. Start serving the American people and give them what they really deserve. The American people are tired. They have been locked down for 2 years. Many of them right now are destitute, borderline destitute. Many of them haven't seen doctors in a few years. Many of them have new health conditions that they went into lockdown without. The American people have been starved for help in many ways for the last 2 years. And the last thing they needed was a do-nothing president. And Joe Biden turns out to be the biggest do-nothing president we've had in modern American politics. When 2024 comes and the Democrats get swept off the map, it's not going to be a question of why, but a question of who. Hey everybody, thank you so much for checking out The Line in the Sand. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, please click that like button and think about subscribing. Thank you for your support.